Hello, parenthetical lovelies. So today I wanted to talk about the relationship between depression and creativity. I write, but other people are creative in other ways, and I think the things I'm going to talk about today really kind of applies to any type of creativity. I can't speak for everyone on this, so everything I'm going to say and talk about is going to be just speaking for myself. Mental illness is hard for me to talk about, and I think it's hard for a lot of people to talk about. I have depression, anxiety, and PTSD, and I have dealt with those things for more than half of my life. And I think for some people, talking about mental illness, maybe there's like an element of embarrassment or shame. For me, I don't talk about it a lot just because, number one, I don't want it to seem like I'm all like, pay attention to me, or like being kind of needy. And then also, I don't want it to be the first thing that people think about when they see me. Like, oh, she's been wearing the same pajama pants for 3 days. She must be having a really hard time. I know that mental illness has a stigma, and that, that's why some people are embarrassed to talk about it. But then other people kind of chime in saying, well, mental illness is just like any other kind of illness, and you wouldn't be embarrassed to talk about a broken arm or heart disease because sick is sick, and it should be that simple, right? But for me, my brain feels different than any other part of my body, because your brain kind of makes up all of your thoughts and your feelings and your actions, and dictates your behavior. And so essentially your brain kind of makes up everything that is you. And so for me, telling someone about my depression feels less like I'm saying, oh, there's something wrong with my arm, or there's something wrong with my cardiovascular system, and it feels a whole lot more like I'm saying there is something wrong with me. So those are my own reasons for not being super public and open with talking about my depression. For some people, it might help to have a larger support network, and have a lot of people around you and have a lot of people to talk to about it. And if that works for you, then by all means do it. Anything that makes you feel better, do it. But then other people, like me, I think, prefer a much smaller support network. At times I have really bad social anxiety, and so for me the thought of talking to a lot of people or talking to a group about anything personal, especially something like that, it gives me anxiety like you just wouldn't even believe. I think generally I'm known as being kind of jokey and trying to be funny, even though most of the time my jokes flop. But that's generally who I try to be. Publicly, I try to be kind of superficial, not superficial in a bad way, because I am kind of just funny and jokey by nature. But I think when when people are laughing at something stupid and pretty innocuous, they're not going to be asking you super hard, heavy questions. And so for me, trying to be funny is kind of my way at keeping people at a distance. Like, that's close enough. I think generally, on a day-to-day basis, I tend to really like my solitude, and I tend to like to be solitary. I generally prefer to be by myself. When I say by myself, I also mean with my family. I like having my kids around and having, knowing that my husband is home and everybody's safe and kind of tucked in. That to me is very kind of soothing. And liking quiet and solitude just goes perfectly with writing, because writing is such a solitary thing. It's done alone with just you, and you're kind of in your own headspace. So the thing that I have to be very conscious of is just my state of mind when I'm being alone for a long period of time. Like, am I sitting here in my writing room in my pajama pants, all alone, ignoring the house and not answering the door, because it's like a really soothing and calming thing for me, and I'm happy about it. And if that's the situation, then great. But if I'm sitting down here in my writing room in my pajama pants because I don't have the strength or energy or desire to get dressed, and the whole idea of getting dressed and putting on makeup and looking cute feels completely hopeless. And if I'm ignoring the house because I am just so dang tired, and everything, the laundry and the dishes and everything have gotten so out of control that it feels just completely overwhelming. And if I'm not answering the door because at this very moment it feels like I would be perfectly content to never speak to anyone ever again. Like, on the surface, these two activities look kind of the same. Me being down here being alone. And so my state of mind is what I really have to be careful of, because depression is kind of sneaky, and slowly that calm solitude will turn into a feeling of isolation, and that's what you have to be careful of. So through all of time, there's kind of been this correlation between creativity and mental illness. It seems like all of the greatest minds were just a titch crazy, you know? And I don't know why that is, if, you know, it all kind of comes from the same part of the brain or something. I have no idea what, you know, that chemical, physical correlation is. The thing with depression or anxiety or anything like that is that it's something, if you suffer from it, you can kind of draw from it. And, you know, that's something that I can kind of write about and have my characters go through, and because I have a real sense of what it is. The problem with writing about it is that sometimes writing about it deeply can kind of drag you back down into it if you're not careful, and so you have to be really mindful of that. So my depression becomes something that I accept and that I deal with, but it's something that I don't enable or, you know, embrace and I'll get all cuddled up with and be French kissing all over it. You can't do that with your depression. I think some people have this idea that your creativity is so much better if you're writing from a dark place and you're like this tortured soul. But I'm telling you right now that it is a really bad idea to risk your mental health or your physical health or anything of that nature for your craft. It's very counterproductive. So the things that I do when I kind of get down into a rut and I'm just kind of coming out of, you know, a harder, darker place, there are some things that I do to kind of rekindle the inspiration and the creativity. Number one is go out for a walk. Being outside, getting fresh air, the vitamin D, they're real things, guys. Those are things that will actually physically help you to feel better. And then you need to find things that kind of work for you. I love art, I love music, all those kinds of things, you know, just promote that creativity in me. And I think if you're a writer, you need to write. You just need to start writing, even if you don't feel like it. And it doesn't matter what you write. If, you know, you're really in a rut and the idea of jumping back into your novel is just huge and overwhelming, don't. It's fine. You don't have to get back into that right now. You can write a short story. You can write a letter to someone. You can write a haiku. You can write in a journal. It doesn't really matter what you're writing. You just need to start, get back into it, and that ball will just get rolling. So at the end of this, I'm going to go ahead and put some links in the downtown, things that have helped me. There was a blog post at Hyperbole and a Half about depression that when I read it, I wanted to like jump for joy and bawl, because it was one of those things that just so nailed what was in my heart, that someone else knew, you know, exactly what it was that I felt. And thanks for watching today. See ya.